Welcome back to Full Court Press in Transition with Coach Q, and I have a special guest. And I say special because this dude is special, dear to my heart. He's like a brother to me. We connected 8 years ago in Tallahassee Community College, where I began my head coaching career, and he began his journey, which he's about to discuss with you. Dean, soon to be Dr. Equan Burrows. He's in the doctorate program to get, I'll let him explain it to you. All this, his bio will be at the bottom. He is the Dean of Students of the Milwaukee technical campuses. I think there's like 7 or 8.
Four.
But at the same time, that was Kennedy King that you were. Yes. Dean of Students of Kennedy King. They had like 8 or 9 campuses. But no further ado, this is going to be an amazing time. It's going to be an amazing experience. Just a bunch of nuggets going to be dropped of on various levels. And so, without further ado, Equan Burrows, my brother, how you doing, man? So glad to have you with me today.
God is too good, Q. God is too good. I'm so glad to be with you, man. It's an honor to watch, not only to watch you grow, but to ultimately see all your goals and aspirations come to life, man. It's been a pleasure, and in kind, it's also been a blessing to be a blessing, and I'm glad that God has put me in the space that He has in order to be a blessing to others, and the journey has been long, but it's been fun. It's been engaging, and I can't wait to see what God has for both of us as we continue on with this thing called life, man. So I'm excited as well. I'm excited.
And so, I'll set this up for people. I got to Tallahassee. There were a few people who actually believed what I said I was gonna do, and they jumped on board. And started paddling. One of them was our athletic director. One of them was our strength coach, Coach Jonathan Jones. Other one was Equan Burrows and Robert Meeks. And these were 2 people over the athletic facility at the time. And I came in with a lot of vision, a lot of aspirations, and they allowed for those things to happen. And I tell people a lot. Special things can't happen unless you have special people around you. And they allowed me to move around and develop processes, which allowed me to develop a product, which thus we win a championship. And he's just as much a part of that championship that we won as any of the players or any of the coaches, because of the energy and the effort that he gave to the program, our kids, helping with resources, with energy, ideas, just the commonality of being a big brother, an uncle, a family member to all these kids. And so I say that to set this all up because you'll hear remnants of a lot of different things throughout this conversation. But Equan, for the listeners that have never met you, that don't know who you are, take us to the bare root of Equan Burrows and where Equan is from, how he grew up, and what led you to be who you are today.
Man, it all starts. Well, again, thank you, Q, for the opportunity to tell my story. In essence, I really don't take it lightly, and I appreciate you for it. Who is Equan? Man, it all starts long time ago. Brooklyn, New York. I was actually born in Brooklyn, New York, by way of Nassau, Bahamas. And after being born in the month of August, a couple of months later, I was sent back to the Bahamas, actually, to live in the Bahamas for a time while my mother stayed here and worked here in New York, and made way for a young man to really be as successful. The young men, I have one older brother, 7 years older. And so he stayed with my mother and set up home, and I was back with my aunt to the Bahamas. And then when it was time, when they could take, when things were able and were ready, if you would, for for us to go ahead and continue our lives, we moved from New York to Florida. And in Florida, I did enjoy my K through 12 work. And then thereafter, I then went on to Florida State University, where I got my bachelor's degree. At Florida State as well, it was a unique time, all right? It was 2006, going into six, and you know, a very unique time for the state of Florida at large, a lot of things going on, but ultimately, Florida State had the highest minority level of any public university in the state at that time. And so there was a number of reasons why I chose Florida State, but ultimately, I appreciate Florida State for having relatable programming, relatable engagement opportunities for a young person like me that's finding himself in essence in this space, being and coming from an immigrant background and coming into this American collegiate framework. It was a unique time for me. So in essence, 4 years at Florida State University, and then I find myself a couple months away from graduation, and I said, God, listen, I have my rent paid up until February. You know I need a job. I've completed the degree. What's next? And allowing God to move and be able to actually direct and open those doors, I was able to actually find a space, a landing spot at Tallahassee Community College. I am a Boy Scout. My mother's. Realistically, I'm again. Let's stop everything. I really have to shout out my mother, Teresa Burrows, in this regard. Without her and her sacrifice, there would be no Equan Burrows. There would be no Dean Burrows. There would be no soon-to-be Dr. Burrows. Even though my mother in 8th grade was maybe signed a contract that's still, I think, visible on our fridge, that Equan Burrows will get his PhD. And so, December is our anticipated date. And again, she's still holding my feet to the fire in that regard. So it will be done. But at the same time, again, shout out to my mom, an educator. She instilled that value of education in me. But long story short, getting back to Tallahassee Community College, right there after Florida State, after graduating, I got an opportunity. Mr. Douglas Waddell gave me a call and allowed an opportunity to come forth, be it that I had some experience. I was a Boy Scout. I did a little bit of everything when I was a kid. And my mother, there wasn't one thing that I probably didn't do, from Taekwondo to karate, to all the extracurriculars in regard to sports, football, and then lastly, Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts was a pretty cool and big piece of my upbringing as well, and learning those leadership skills, learning how to manage people, right, and learning how to interact with different types of people. As you can imagine, I was one of the only African Americans in the space, and so that's when I really learned differences. Because of course I went to school with minority students, and so it wasn't that big of a deal. But going into the Boy Scouts of America, there was a pretty big divide in essence. And sometimes some of the students, I call everybody a student, but some of the members of some of the scouts had never interacted with an African American as closely as they did with me in that space. And so I learned a lot in that sense. And now beyond it, I also gained a number of hobbies, if you would, and that included, hiking, climbing, backpacking. We're talking about scuba diving. We're talking about skydiving as well, ATVing, the things that, some African-American young men at the age of 11 would never get, especially coming from the inner city, never get the chance to really be able to do. And I was able to do that. Shout out to my Scoutmaster, Mike DeWitt, in that regard. But beyond that, those skills actually related perfectly with the first program that I actually was employed with at TCC. And that program was called Eagle Adventures. Eagle Adventures was a pretty cool program where the college was able to subsidize the cost of trips for students to go all around the world and to do extracurricular outdoor events, to really keep them engaged. And so I was able to walk in and really take a program that was spending a big hunk of a budget on a big trip, and actually was able to diversify the offerings to our students. And before the 2.5 years of that program's running, before that was done, I was able to really graduate over 93% of our students that came through that program, right? Because again, it just wasn't about getting out side and doing things, even though that experiential learning is everything. It was really about making sure that we make those connections, right? And that we make sure that we have those touch points in every space, not just in that academic advising session that student schedules, but also in the Lifetime Sports Complex. With some of the students say, hey, let's pause this basketball game. Let's have a conversation, right? Have you done? Have you did? You know, is everything in order for you to graduate? Whatever that student may be. And so it's been a blessing, man. It's been a blessing throughout the time. From that program, the vice president at the time, Sharon Jefferson, heard of some of the extracurricular things and programs that I've developed and we're a part of at Florida State University, and immediately plugged in the logic of being able to support our African American development program called the Black Male Achievers. As you know, you've spoken to them many a times, and so we started with 5 young men, 5 to 25 to 58, 58 to 105 by the time that I left the college. Young men that were all geared to success. Our motto fundamentally was, I know who I am, I know where I am, and I know where I'm going. And with that, the success rates of that program skyrocketed. The college did research, and we found that our students were 3 times more likely to graduate than other students that had not been touched by the program. And with that, the vice president then before after said, hey, let's take your skills and those transferable things that you've done within that program, let's give it to another. And I was able to actually lead and direct a program called Fostering Achievement Fellowship, which was one of the most, I would imagine, impactful jobs that I've probably had in my life. Early on, God bless it, actually gives your first degree on the state. And so our program was geared toward those foster students that were finding themselves in the collegiate experience and making sure that they had all the necessary support structures and systems that they needed in order to be successful. By the time the program was over, our program was leading symposiums for the entire state systems of foster youth across the state. And so bringing in colleges like FIU and UF to our campus at TCC to give them the model that we've been utilizing in order to engage and to develop those students. So again, at TCC was such a time for me, a foundational time and a collaborative time that I'm so appreciative for. And then, of course, you can't forget about the Lifetime Sports Complex. I mean, again, I started in that space with the Eagle Venture Program. My office was located, and then by way, of course, my managerial skills were able to be utilized by becoming the assistant manager under, as you stated, Mr. Robert, for his support and dedication in that regard. At the end of the day, Rob and I were able to develop comprehensive programming. We were able to really get in and really try to change the way things were done at TCC when it comes to Lifetime Sports. And so we embedded and implemented a number of programs that still stand today, as Rob is the actual director of our Lifetime Sports Complex as it stands. And so I'm just so excited, again, to work with all the folks that I have in the past at TCC and beyond. After TCC, I had the opportunity to work with the city colleges of Chicago, right? And I think that's what you spoke to, with having 7 colleges wide across the city. It was an amazing experience as well, where we were able to continue to develop and build structures of engagement that then, therefore, after would benefit the entire campus at large. Again, we call ourselves one college with 7 different campuses or 7 different locations, and they're being able to do so for 4 whole years. I was located in Inglewood, Chicago. If anybody knows about Chicago, shout out to Inglewood, 63rd and Halsted. But again, they call it the rose budding from the concrete, but ultimately it was an amazing institution, one of the highest graduation rates of all the 7 city colleges. But again, found in the inner city in one of the most crime-riddled neighborhoods in Chicago, but still academically doing very, very well in that regard, or when it comes to completion. And so, I was proud to be a Kennedy King statesman. And in that regard, shortly after that, after building that framework, moving on and up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee was a When I got there, I had the title of Director of Student Life. And then as a Director of Student Life, I was pretty much in charge of almost everything, right? At the college, we had all student leadership. We had all student engagement, all student travel. We had the majority of the resources at the college. It was just a really holistic environment that I was glad to be able to come in after my predecessor, after 30 years of him being there, having me step into place was a big mantle to take on. But again, it was a very rewarding process as I spent my year and 8 to 9 months really in that position in retooling and restructuring said framework to really speak to the students' needs, right? Our MATC, Milwaukee Area Technical College, again, has 4 colleges, one in Equan up north, and one main center downtown. That's our Milwaukee branch. One out in West Allis and one in the south that we call Oak Creek. But and my office is located at the central campus, at the downtown campus, and really just looking at the landscape and seeing how disjointed some of the colleges were. There wasn't the sense of cohesion. And so we wanted to make sure that we were bringing in and creating a district mindset where no matter if you're far north, if you're far south, you still get that same experience, that same engagement. And so, professionally, my big push was always to build bridges, right? To collaborate and to develop. And so now as the Dean of Student Experience, not to belabor the point, I am now supervising our athletic programs at all 9 of our sports at all 4 of our campuses. I am also over the Director of Student Life now, right? And that entire function that for all 4 of our campuses, all of our food services and catering options, our childcare centers at all 4 of our campuses, our resource centers at all 4 of our campuses and the offerings thereof, and all of our parking structures as well. So literally anything to do with the student's life cycle or their experience or engagement when they do come to campus. Again, I have the privilege and honor to be able to support and develop over time. And so that's where I am now, Q. And again, I'm wide open for questions. You know, we can get into the nitty gritty of each one of these pieces, and every one of them has been so fulfilling, right? Milwaukee is still showing me how much work we still have to do. Chicago has shown me how much impact you can really have in spaces where some folks may have given up on. I think Tallahassee has shown that through great support structures, you're able to do great things, right? And I think you understand that, be it that, when we were there, I think we were able to maneuver in our expertise. And when administrators are able to do so, it really creates an environment of growth, right? And particularly, it creates results. And so, and that's what we're all about. We're all about, prior planning and execution. And assessing after the fact to ensure that we can always do some quality improvement. But ultimately, it's all about developing and all becoming better, always becoming better through the assessment.
So with that, Equan, and thank you. And the journey has been an amazing to watch you on. So let's take this left turn, and I want to pass the rock to you in your doctorate. So you're working on your doctorate. You stepped into your doctorate, and you talked to me about some of the things that you're working on. And I want to talk about, due to the situation that happened here recently with the young man, what your doctorate is about, and we talked about represented community. Tell me more about that and why you're passionate, because you always worked with the underrepresented community. So kind of fill me in on that doctorate piece, so that people listening can kind of know some of the things that you're trying to step forward in and make changes for the unrepresented population.
Absolutely. When it comes to my doctoral studies, I'm focusing on minority success trends within community colleges, especially within the minority male framework, right? And we know that this research is pure, that minority males within education have found themselves at the low end of the totem pole. And it's been that way for a time. And for me, I've always, and again, as cliche as it may be, I've always wanted to be the change that I wanted to see. I wanted to put the onus on myself to go change the things that I didn't like. I did that within business, right? I did that within my own entertainment company, where I said, you know what? I don't want to go out to these random places. I would rather come in, hear great quality music, live music at that. And so, we started our own brand, right? We started our own deal. And so for me, it was the idea that I, as an African-American male, having the experiences that I had, and I knew that there was a certain algorithm to it. I knew that through engagement and through dedication and through support, right? I have a strong support system, being my mother, my brother, my family, encouraging me, affirming me, right? That's another piece of the puzzle. Beyond that, it's the idea of being able to have those support structures and then therefore after become the success in which you want to see. You can't do what you don't see, Q, right? And so at times it's really hard for persons in the minority framework to really embrace the idea of their own success, because they don't see many that are successful in the same sphere, right? Especially when it comes to education. So they look to alternative lifestyles. They look to alternative ideas. They think sports may be the only way to go ahead and to be quote unquote successful. And so for myself, early on, my question of my doctoral question in that regard was always wanting to know what that algorithm really was and what led to success and what really what support structures were necessary, right? Necessary, not just sporadically put in place for certain populations, but give me the empirical frame of what is necessary to support African American or minority students in the community college level, especially. As we know, I say community college because, again, the threshold for community colleges are a lot lower than the 4-year level, right? And so we call them open access institutions. And these open access institutions are a surefire way to get education to our population. And so at Florida State, I had never ventured over to the community college ever. My 4 years there, I think I may have, of course I passed by it often, but in essence, never really got onto the campus and really engaged with the population. And when I did, I found out that that's where the need was, right? And that's where our folks that got that second chance were looking for that next step and looking for that support structure in order to get them to where they are. And through that, it all led up to where I am now in my studies, right? Again, from the beginning, wanting to know exactly how I can be the change and how I can help and how I can support my population's folks that look like me. Again, I do have locks and I'm kind of big in stature. And so a lot of folks didn't quite understand that I was actually the lead or the lead administrator in certain areas as students. Some of them thought that I was students. Some of the administrators thought that I was students as well. And I wanted to break that mold, that I was a student rather. And I wanted to break that mold. I wanted to make sure that folks saw themselves in me. And that sparked and is still fueling my doctoral journey to completion. Amen. So at the end of the day, that's kind of how we got started with the idea of coming to the conclusion of my doctoral studies. And you're right, Q. What's happening in our society today is downright it's disheartening. It's upsetting. It's scary. Absolutely. But we do have the tools in order to fight it. And that tool is engagement. That's being active. That's being present. That's being there and participatory in these things we call our structure, our society, our government. We got to be present, right? And again, that's one of the major things that I teach within my engagement structures with our student leaders, especially, is being present. It's showing up. It's being there on time, right? It's being there, not only being there on time, not only just being present, but also having something to say, right? And not just for the sake of saying it, but for the sake of a constructive frame of being able to tell your story. And that's what it's all about, Q. Being able to stand firm in your own belief, in your own reality, in your own belief, and in your own reality to tell your own story. It's a big deal. It changes lives, and I've seen it happen. And again, that piece of the puzzle is definitely embedded in all of my structures when it comes to minority development within education.
So what do you see in the future of education, and I know we're talking about the junior college, but let's
Sure.
step out of just education period as far as Black males, because I interviewed another doctoral candidate.
Sure.
He's at St. John's University, African American
Sure.
male.
Sure.
Said he's over 2,000 students in engagement. Some stuff you're doing. Said the
Sure.
same exact thing.
Oh wow.
That the reason why he wanted to go get his doctorate was because there were so few people that looked like us doing it. And the one person that looked like him doing it made him believe that he could do it.
Absolutely.
And so if nothing else, you know, us three getting our doctorates, which I'm starting mine.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Yes, sir. It's to prove and show to others that something can be accomplished far and beyond. And you giving, it's more of a selfless thing than it is a thing of receiving, because, you know, I want to walk into a room and have a seat at the table.
Amen.
You know, and that's in all aspects, whether I have a doctorate degree, master's degree, you know, bachelor's. I just want to sit at the table. And like I said, I don't want to sit at the table and just talk to be talking.
Absolutely.
I want to sit at the table with, you know, you always say my facts in a row and actual knowledge, not anything that I made up or not anything that I feel. Exactly. What do the numbers say and what does the research give us? So, Equan, when I sum that up, what does it look like in your eyes for Black males in the education system right now?
Being a Black male in this education climate, it's hard. There's a lot of societal pressures. As we know, 1 in 3 African Americans will see the inside of a jail cell. As we know, there's, and I hate that, the statistics appear, don't want to go down the line, right? At the end of the day, society has its own set of barriers. I think personally, as a people, we have our own set of mental barriers and emotional and historical traumas that fundamentally affect us on a daily as well, that need to be addressed. This post-traumatic stress framework, as an African-American male in this country, to see yourself being murdered on you know, with a knee on the back of a neck, as it just transpired in Minneapolis not too long ago. To see that is traumatic. To see that, and for that to be applauded or praised in a certain regard, it does something to a child's psyche. It does something to an adult as well that has maybe experienced some of those traumas over time. And so there are some hurdles that not only society has put in place, be it structural, social, economic barriers that are in place. There's also some mental structures personally that we have to get through. And then there's the actual work of school, which is demanding, which is it is work, right? And some folks, you know, one of the major things that I say to students, especially high school students that come into the college, the first person I ask them, I say, "Hey, everybody, how you doing? My name is Equan Burrows. I'm director, whatever I may be now, being a student. I'm glad you're here. I got a question for you. High school is college is just like high school, isn't it?" And everybody goes, "Yes." Trick question, obviously. Yes, absolutely, because it's totally different. And fundamentally, a lot of people aren't taught college. You with me, Q? You're not taught how to. You're not taught the methodology of college. Be it that, you know, you're on your own. You have your own. You pick your own classes. You're paying for this service now. So now it's a customer service type of relationship more than it is a mandated idea from the state. The food is totally different. You may have a major chain, may have a Chick-fil-A, a Pizza Hut in there when, you know, beforehand you hated school because of the food, right? There's a lot of our students, and I would ask them, why do you hate school so much? What is school to you? And so ultimately the conditioning of said African-American male mind, especially, about school is definitely, based on the research, as we know, it's not favorable. There's no, there's not much desire in that regard because there's not much engagement with those high school students to get them to know what college is really like. And that's why I appreciate our bridge programs like the Center for Academic Gear Up and like support service programs that the nation has out there on a grant-funded basis. I mean, those things are necessary in order to acclimate our African-American men into the education realm and for them to see that, guess what, you know, it's a hard reality, Q. You know, it is a hard reality when said student here in Milwaukee, our average age is 30 here at the institution, and to have an individual that, you know, has been in the streets, if you would, for a very long time, Q, and they know they can make a quick, you know, $10,000 if they run these drugs down the street and back, and that fast money, but that risk reward algorithm is also there as well in regard to if that person is caught, you know, what's to be done in their lives, particularly, especially if it's a certain types of drugs, could be over effectively, but they still would risk it all in order to do so. But to see those types of individuals come into the college and then say, hey, you know what, I would rather get it the right way than get it quickly, right, or get it fast and then risk my entire life and my family's livelihood. For me, it's really looking at the generational effect on some of these things that we suffer through as a society, as a people, and really get everybody to understand that there's a way to get out of it, and that way is not to demonize anybody that's in it. It's to make sure they understand the process and the repercussions thereof, and then another way out where they can utilize their skills for the better. And so with all that stated, I think that, you know, it really speaks to kind of my angle, my lens is how I see my impact in on minority students that are looking toward education.
And it's you bring up Gear Up and those type programs that introduce Black males. I was a part of that. I was one of the probably in '95. I was part of a study at UCA, at University of Arkansas. I actually found some paperwork going through the other day, and you know, they introduced us to the opera. We went and saw Cats. We went to museums. They gave us a sense, and then they, you know, we had to do college stuff, and he introduced you to the library, and introduced you to Greek life, and introduced you to professors and doctors, and you know, it was the first time that, like, I was a little overwhelmed, but you know, after a whole summer, like, we lived at the school for the summer and going through, and you dealt with other people, and I found the pamphlet with the you know, little project that I wrote about my experiences, like, you know, and I basically say I love being a part of this, but I want to be a mentor more than I want to be a student in it. And that's how my thinking was even before, you know, the leadership and the leading. But at the same time, if it had not been for APT, which they called it African American Partner in Talent, if it had been for that program, I don't know where Coach Q would be with dyslexia and a learning disability, because I would have probably gotten there and just been overwhelmed. And, you know, and I look forward, and then I fast forward, I end up transferring, and I go to a smaller institution, a private institution, and everything was writing. And it was so much, you know, different than UCA, but at the same time, UCA prepared me for walking into that and not being afraid and willing to not be a number. And the other thing, Equan, you brought up is for people to understand that post-traumatic stress syndrome and imposter syndrome, those two syndromes, Black men face more than anything. And I say that in regards to, there's some days that you walk into a room and, like, do you belong? Like me, my first class that I took, first class that I've taken, and I'm sitting here and I'm looking at stuff in this doctoral program, even my master's program, and I'm like, do I belong here? do like, am I making the right do? And yes, but we have been so beat up by everyone. From I
Right.
go down the list of everyone in certain areas, in certain fields. You've been so beat up as Black men, you know, you wonder if you do belong, and you start to question that. And I think it's important for people to hear the Equan Burrows stories, because it gives them a little hope. It gives them, well, not a little, it gives them a lot of hope that they can achieve and accomplish and move forward, and do the things and look at the difference that you are making in these people's lives. And so, you know, that's what I commend you for, brother. And I know you do it from heart, you know, because I've seen it live and in person, you know. With that, Equan, what is the future for Equan Burrows when it's said and done? Where do you want to take this? What are some of your aspirations? What are some of the things that you're looking forward to? One, after receiving your doctorate degree, and then what do you hope that this doctorate degree will take you in the future?
There are folks that literally, thanks for the question, Q. There are folks that literally go into doctoral programs saying that they want to become a dean of students. All right, and so fundamentally, I feel I'm fulfilled. I do feel as if that I can do great work and have great impact in and on not only Milwaukee but our population of students of 35,000 students that we have at one of the largest colleges in the state of Wisconsin. You know, to brag on MATC, I can do it all day, but we're 61% minority. And so for me, it's not only continue to develop, but it's to get our graduation rate to where it should be, especially for those underrepresented populations, which we do find equity gaps. All right. And so I have a lot of work to do, Q. Where do I see myself in the future? I see myself fundamentally working on the things that I know I walked into this institution for. Folks ask me all the time, you're a Bahamian boy, right? You're from the Bahamas, you know, you're from Florida. What are you doing here in the Midwest? And realistically, we go to where the need is. Again, I would be remiss if I was just wherever, you know, being comfortable while there are individuals in large spaces with large discrepancies within the idea of criminalization, which we know 53206, our zip code, is a pretty great documentary out about it. Please, everybody, go watch it. It gives you some insight in on what Milwaukee is, which has been labeled one of the most segregated cities in the nation. And again, people look at Chicago, but again, it's really these small outlying frames, right? People look at Tallahassee in Florida, but realistically, Quincy is one of those areas where it's the most impoverished in that regard. And so it's similar to that concept, but at the same time, you know, there's also labels given into the most, you know, the worst place to be an African-American male in the nation, be it to the incarceration rates and the lack of education and the lack of opportunity and access, right? And so where else should I be, Q? But right here, wanting to counteract and really push toward a mark of inclusion, inclusivity, and assuring that folks know that we're here. Education's here, right? And so in the future, I'm definitely a president of college university. I definitely want to continue my consulting frame of my business and be able to go out and speak and be able to really encourage others and let them know, show them that they can make it throughout this process we call life, as we say, right? As an African American, which has so many undertones, and it's not the same for everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's the bigger thing here too. So I'm not speaking to one experience. I'm speaking to an ideology, to an understanding that we all suffer as people. But in this country, sadly, there have been some things put in place in order that fundamentally that has held us back. And so we need to start breaking down those barriers. And one of the main ways to break through any barrier is education, learning, and then therefore being able to maneuver through your educational experience. And so for me, it's, you know, that's the big thing. My future is really going to be wherever God directs it to be, right? From that first time I told you that I talked to God and said, hey, you know, February, my rent's to be due. And from that point on, everything else was not on my doing, but only on the creators. And so I threw my hands up and walk by faith and not by sight in that regard, and allow God to continue to carry me throughout this process. And I know that if I follow that line, that all will be well. And I can't complain at all. Okay.
So let me sum this up real quick, Equan.
Go for it.
And I appreciate the time. You got a lot of stuff to do, but we take this experience in this life and we ball it all up.
Yeah.
And we write a book about it. What would that title of that book be?
Let go. Let go.
Let go.
Let go. And again, I know a lot of people. I want this because it's a pretty cool song about let go, let God. But I want it to be let go. And again, whatever that thing you need to let go of is, some of it, for some folks is ego. For some folks, it's a person's. For some folks, it's it's an idea, it's an habit. But let go of it and really trust the process, right? Is what I think I would probably name that first book, and I'm coming behind you. I know you got a book series I might want to get in on as well, which is on one of my first. But at the end of the day, it will probably be let go. And I haven't thought of that. It's a great question. I haven't thought of it until you particularly asked me. But again, I think that was the first thing that came to my mind. And then again, I can see that going a bunch of different ways, and I can definitely speak to a number of different ways that I had to let go and ultimately allow God to take control in that regard and really put me where He wanted me to be and to have the impact that it was necessary. I really do think let go would be the title. That's pretty cool.
All right. Well, I am putting a series together, and I am looking at getting deans of students. A collective of dean of students that I know to write, their what that means and their stories, their journeys, because you have stories, not only your own, but you have impacted so many lives that you have stories of students that people have to like. I don't think people understand. They look at me kind of crazy,
right?
And until the ones that are supposed to be a part that we're working with now in this first project, and they're like, Q, thank you, because there's so much that has come out of me. And I was like, one, it's therapeutic. Two, somebody has to hear it. Like it's one of the amazing things. One of the first books I've ever read, it was actually the second book, was a collection of 101 stories. And I bet you many people remember this, but Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, yeah.
That was, and this is a guy who didn't read, was reading out of fourth grade. That book, a book called Faith Factor, which I still have back here, and then Chicken Soup for the Souls, which are actually right behind me.
Right.
Those books were the first books, but they were people's stories.
Absolutely.
Man, people's stories, those stories change lives. And I encourage people to tell their story. And this is why I did this podcast, because I encourage you to tell your story. And I appreciate you coming on, telling your story. You're going to give hope to somebody. And I know not just me, but somebody listening is going to hear this. Somebody listening is going to take that leap. And I promise you, Equan said it, walk by faith, not by sight. And one thing I can promise you, and we talked about it in our journey at TCC, there are many nights that we were all, there's a brotherhood of us all on the edge, and we're looking at each other, and it's one or two things. We all step forward, we're going to land on something solid, or we're going to learn how to fly. And I promise you, we all are flying right now. And brother, I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you for everything that you've given me. I thank you for your encouragement. I thank you for your love. I thank you for your wisdom. I thank you for your brotherhood. And I thank you for this last piece and this last question, because we got to figure out who it is.
Go for it.
This bestseller, Let Go, they want to make a movie out of it. Who's playing you?
Who's playing Equan Burrows? I'm hard pressed. I'm hard pressed to find somebody. one of my nephews, maybe. I don't know. It got to be somebody that got some of this Burrows blood in them, because at the end of the day, I like to think that, you know, the rearing was unique, and in order to embrace that true emotion that comes from some of the situations that may be discussed in this book, we will need somebody that actually has that personal experience to be able to really relate, right? But at the end of the day, that's a great question as well, Q. And again, I'm gonna have to give it to one of my nephews. Probably, I think Amir may be able to be as that's the middle. That's the middle one, particularly. I think
we got two princesses in the family.
Yeah, absolutely. On your side as well. Absolutely, man. So, man, it's definitely will be probably that young man when he gets a bit older. But at the end of the day, great question. As introspective as could be, that would be cool though. That would be cool.
Man, Equan, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And like I said, live, love, and lead. Next time, until next time on Full Court Press and Transition with Coach Q, you know, we love you guys.